Rise of the Eldrazi was the crescendo of Zendikar block. With an ancient tomb open and 3 enormous gods emerging, the rare large-set spring release came with an entirely new theme and gameplay. With a focus on battle cruiser magic, that is, building a huge monster with multiple auras, or through casting an incredibly expensive creature, Rise of the Eldrazi is a beloved set that continues to impact Magic to this day. Rise of the Eldrazi was lead designed by veteran Brian Tinsman, one of only 4 people who has led more than 3 large set designs at the time. His task was to create a Zendikar turned upside down by Magic's newest villains, to reboot mechanically, but not creatively. His journey began with the 3 Eldrazi monsters themselves. They were massive, huge, described as Galactus meets Cthulhu. These rare, malformed monsters were now unleashed on the plane, and they were not coming lightly. As they existed before mana existed, they became Magic's first non-artifact, colorless creatures. Because they were huge, even the common Eldrazi, Lemans Crusher, was a monstrous 8/8 for 8 mana, complete with the Eldrazi's own mechanic to show their devastation to the world, Annihilator. But the Eldrazi gods were special, and as such had special if-you-cast-it abilities, as R&D wanted to reward players who got all the way up to their incredible mana costs. Luring the Eldrazi to Zendikar with the promise of its lush ecosystems and unique mana, Soren Markov and 2 other planeswalkers successfully trapped Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre, and Imrakul, the Aeons Torn, inside the vast Hedrons in the mountains of Akoum. Their spell was focused in an underground cavern called the Eye of Ugin. Ugin was a spirit dragon planeswalker, and one of Soren's allies in the quest to imprison the Eldrazi. Centuries after they were trapped, they fought back inside their prison, almost breaking free, but failing. What they did do was successfully create 3 lesser Eldrazi drone creatures to ravage the land, the brood lineages that shared their thirst for life and energy. One was created for each of the Eldrazi gods. Imrakul's spawn were squirmy, spongy, and covered in lattice patterns. Like the god that created them, they were tentacular and ending in finger or claw-like appendages. They were also created by Nest Invader and Imrakul's Hatcher, creating Eldrazi spawn as they entered the battlefield. Ulamog's kind was best known for their cold, faceless skulls, complete with various bits of hardened bone around them. The lineage also featured tentacles, but arms, multiples of them, branched from those tentacles to support their enlarged torsos. The spawn all share these characteristics, and multiple creatures and spells produce Ulamog spawn, including Pawn of Ulamog, Spawn Sire of Ulamog, and Growth Spasm. Lastly, we have Kozilek spawn and its lineage. This includes freakish-looking creatures with big metal or bone-like plates hovering around their heads. These sharp projections tear through armor and flesh with ease and are not truly understood. The spawn of Kozilek are insect-looking creatures with lots of eyes and skittering around on crab-like limbs. Creatures in the Kozilek lineage look like animals or insects, such as Kozilek's Predator and Rapacious One, or feature eyes in weird places, like in Dreaddrone. Other spells that create Kozilek spawn include Corpse Hatch and Spawning Breath. These horrible spawn and the lineages the 3 gods unleashed on the world quickly enslaved the vampires of the realm, forcing them to grow horns in their shoulders for easily handling and control. Despite the vampire hordes ravaging the land, the Eye of Ugin held strong, and the Eldrazi were still contained. But the world itself was revolting around the state of things, like a giant immune system reacting to a virus. The world began creating traps, land elementals sprang up, and the powerful roil began to flow through the land, destroying it and remaking it right underneath the feet of its enemies. The land successfully fought off the broods and the spawn. It would be thousands of years before the gods would be awakened. But awakened they were. When Chandra inadvertently cracked the seal, the gods were loose and their lineages and broods returned, and Zendikar needed some serious heroes to help out. Heroes are made over time, through training and discipline. You could say they leveled up over time to show how they've grown, changed, and gotten better. Inspired by Eventide's Figure of Destiny, this was one of the main mechanics of the set, and it worked wonderfully. Cards like Caravan Escort and Knight of Cliffhaven played amazingly well in Limited, where you always wanted to use your mana each turn, and Level Up had the very skill-testing aspect of whether to use your turn leveling up your creatures or hold back mana for a trick or spell on your opponent's turn. With 25 cards featuring the mechanic, only a few ever saw constructed play. Coralhelm Commander made its way to a top 8 at a Pro Tour, to being featured in Legacy Merfolk, where it lived until it was later outclassed by Master of the Pearl Trident and True Name Nemesis. Jiraga Treespeaker has been known as a green soul ring, as her ability to level up into tapping for 2 mana essentially replaced the mana it took to do so, and powered out many a primeval titan in Standard. Kargan Dragonlord saw a bit of play in red decks, but the incredibly oppressive core Firewalker did a great job of keeping red decks out of Standard. Lastly, Student of Warfare was brewed to be a White Weenie All-Star, where he did just that with a full playset in Paul Rizzo's winning White Weenie deck at Pro Tour Amsterdam later that year. But if we move away from the level up mechanic, Rise of the Eldrazi had plenty of terrific tournament viable cards. The most prominent of these is Vengevine, a card that worked in a very weird way, but ultimately turned out to be a very powerful one. Paired up with the Survival of the Fittest on a stick, aka a creature in the form of Fauna Shaman, it didn't take long for this Mondo combo to see serious play. In fact, when paired with the actual Survival of the Fittest, it was this interaction that got Survival of the Fittest banned in Legacy, where it remains banned to this day. Vengevine has also seen print as a World Magic Cup promo given out in 2013. Rise of the Eldrazi features 2 Planeswalkers, both impacting tournament play. But it was Gideon Jura that truly shined, quickly recognized as one of the most powerful 5-mana Planeswalkers ever printed. Gideon remained a tournament staple from its printing to its passing in Standard. Sargon the Mad, while incredibly flavorful, suffered from being too narrow and easily removed, with no plus abilities or ways to protect itself, and as a result only truly saw play in the Zendikar block-constructed format. The Eldrazi themselves have all seen competitive top-tier play, with Emrakul the Aeon's Torn remaining a Legacy mainstay, in conjunction with powerful combo cards like Show and Tell or Sneak Attack. The ability to sneak in the largest creature of all time, in addition to its incredible Annihilator mechanic, can steal games out of nowhere. When the set first debuted, while still paired with Shards of Alara block in Standard, it was Eldrazi Conscription that rose from obscurity to become a tournament mainstay, teaming up with Sovereigns of Lost Alara and an attacking creature to instantly search for and put onto the battlefield the most powerful aura ever printed. Linvala, Keeper of Silence, also saw play in the same deck, shutting down powerful creatures like Noble Hierarch on the opposing side of the table, and still sees play today in Birthing Pod decks in the modern constructed format. While it took the printing of New Phyrexia and Deceiver Exarch for it to hit tournament play, Splinter Twin quickly rose to being a force to be reckoned with. Later paired with Deceiver Exarch and Pestermite, along with the redundancy of Kiki Chiki Mirror Breaker, it has remained a modern staple with turn 5 auto wins always looming. Lastly, one of the most important constructed cards to come out of the set is Inquisition of Kozilek, an incredibly powerful uncommon and, thanks to its very story-specific name, a difficult one to reprint, which helps it keep a high price tag. While it was fine in Standard, its ability to shine in Modern and Legacy, where cheap spells rule, is where Inquisition of Kozilek has truly found a lasting home. Rise of the Eldrazi Limited is heralded as one of the best limited formats of all time. With its battle cruiser magic feel, players would often spend time hoarding mana, playing early defender creatures, and incredibly expensive spells once thought uncastable in Limited. Giving each color cheap, high-toughness creatures slowed the game down to let the big, expensive spells work. Dramatic swings, huge creatures, and game-turning abilities awaited players such as Dawnglare Invoker, with her 8-mana ability being one of the strongest cards in Limited, as you were almost certain to activate it many times, swinging games in your favor. A notable issue in Rise of the Eldrazi Limited was Drana Kalastria Bloodchief, as it was one of the most overpowered bombs in the entire set. Only a few spells or abilities would actually kill it outright. All is Dust, Flame Slash, Heat Ray, Smite if you blocked, and Gideon Jura if it were tapped. Everything else required combat or multiple spells on the same turn. Even the 2 black removal spells in the set specifically said non-black creature, so if you didn't attack with Drana and they weren't playing red, you would have your own personal killing machine all in one card. Unfortunately pushed out of Mythic territory as she was a rare in the intro pack, this limited warping card is the sole blemish on an otherwise amazing limited set. Other mechanics in Rise of the Eldrazi included Rebound, featured on 13 cards, and Totem Armor, an effort to subvert Aura's inherent disadvantage by costing you 2 cards when the enchanted creature was destroyed. Hyena Umbra and Spider Umbra, alongside Rise of the Eldrazi's core Spirit Dancer, featured prominently in Reed Duke's Modern deck for the 2013 World Championships and reached the final match of the tournament. But one of the Plane of Zendikar. That's where Gideon Jura comes in. In youth, a Robin Hood-esque figure, stealing just enough from the rich to feed his gang and giving the rest to the poor. As he got older, he unlocked his spark by defeating much stronger foes. Later, he tracked Chandra through multiple worlds, then found himself outside the mountains of Akoum in Fort Kef when Emrakul's brood attacked. After a hard-fought battle, it was Gideon alone who turned the tide and conquered the Horde. But as he stood in victory, Emrakul the Aeons Torn, the giant evil Eldrazi god, rose and cast its terrible shadow over the camp. Vowing to come back to help them, Gideon told the men to flee into the underground rivers. Hearing rumors of planeswalkers on Ravnica, Gideon left the plane to find help, hoping to return to Zendikar and save the world from the Eldrazi once and for all. An epic set in all senses of the word, Rise of the Eldrazi will cast its shadow on all sets before it, as the high watermark and mana cost in both limited and constructed will challenge all the sets that come after it. Will we ever see Zendikar again? Only time and Wizards of the Coast will tell. Thanks for watching. Did you enjoy this episode? Help me make more by sponsoring the show over at Patreon. This content is not possible without the terrific support of all those who sponsor my stuff. Become a patron of Forgotten Lore to see new episodes before anyone else and help me unlock rewards like keeping episodes as long as this one or voting on my next topic. Click the link in the description. I'll see you guys there.